Hello. Good afternoon. It is August 12th, and we are here for our epic conclusion to our study on the Epistles of John. We are. So it is, it's been, I guess, 6 weeks. We're coming down to the end. Before we get into this, we wanted to tell you a little bit about what we're doing next. So Ben, what are we doing next?
We are doing another book by Isabel Wilkerson. This is one of her, I think it's her second book. Her first book was The Warmth of Other Suns, which won a Pulitzer and was a wonderful read. And this time we're going to be doing Cast.
That's cast with an E at the end.
C-A-S-T-E.
Yeah, so it's not about fishing.
The Reasons of Our Discontents. I heard her interviewed on public radio. It's going to be a good book. And we'll do it section by section, two of us teaching.
Cool.
Another joint project of our two congregations.
Yeah, but we are going to take a couple weeks off.
Yes.
So next week, if you log on to Facebook, you can see other things, but you won't see us.
That's right.
No.
Which we're sorry to say that. But
Yeah. Well, as we get into this, can you take a moment and center us as...
I will.
Yeah.
Let's take a moment to relax our minds and bodies, find a comfortable place to sit. Close your eyes or focus on something that brings you relaxation, something that will set your mind at ease. And we'll take a deep breath. Fill your lungs, then exhale. And as you exhale, feel the tension release in your shoulders, your arms, your back and legs. Once again, breathe in deeply, breathing in God's Spirit, breathing in that Spirit which gives creation life. Fill your lungs, and then exhale. And we'll do that one more time. We'll breathe in deeply, fill in your lungs, then slowly exhale. And I hope you have found some centering point.
Yeah. Right there. Ben, as we get into 3 John, I'm curious, have you ever preached on this book?
Quarterly.
Quarterly?
No.
No. Well, I haven't.
I don't believe I have ever preached on this book.
Have you ever heard a sermon on 3 John? That is a trick question because you don't remember any sermons that you hear. It's just
if I did, it was not memorable.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of interesting. It is one of the 3 shortest books in the New Testament. These 3 books, none of them, they're 2 John, 3 John, and Jude. None of them are in the lectionary anywhere.
Right.
And of those 3 books, I think Jude is the most familiar to us because he riffs off of 2 Peter chapter 2, takes a sad song and makes it better. 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 Better.
Better.
And yeah. But 3 John, we don't really know that well. Part of it is the numbering sequence. We know 1 John, it's very quotable. We've got plaques and mugs with quotations from 1 John. 2 John is kind of like 1 John a little bit, and then...
Other than he calls the church a lady, which kind of throws us.
Yeah, well, church be a lady tonight. And then we get to this one, and it's to a person named Gaius, and talks about a couple other guys, and it seems a little bit strange to us. I will say that the numbering in our Bible, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, is probably all off. I think that 2nd John was likely the 1st John, and 3rd John is the 2nd John, and 1st John is the 3rd John.
Right.
And a little bit of that's conjecture, but it seems to make sense that John sends out the first letter, 2nd John, and there are people that don't respond well to it, and he sends out 3rd John, and then lays out kind of a more full, robust theology in 1 John as his last missive. So let's read 3 John together, and then I want to talk about the people that are mentioned in this book. So, the elder, to the beloved Gaius, who I love in truth. Beloved, I pray that all may go well with you and that you may be in good health, just as it is well with your soul. I'm overjoyed when some of the friends arrived and testified of your faithfulness to the truth, namely how you walk in the truth. I have no greater joy than this, to hear that my children are walking in truth. Beloved, you do faithfully whatever you do for the friends, even though they are strangers to you. They have testified to your love before the church. You will do well to send them on in a manner worthy of God, for they began their journey for the sake of Christ, accepting no support from non-believers. Therefore, we ought to support such people so that we may become co-workers with the truth. I have written something to the church, but Diatriphus, who likes to put himself first, does not acknowledge our authority. So if I come, I will call attention to what he is doing in spreading false charges against us, and not content with those charges, for he refuses to welcome the friends and even prevents those who want to do so and expels them from the church. Beloved, do not imitate what is evil, but imitate what is good. Whoever does good is from God, and whoever does evil has not seen God. Everyone who testifies favorably about Demetrius, and so has the truth itself. We also testify for him, and you know that our testimony is true. I have much to write to you, but I would rather not write with pen and ink. Instead, I hope to see you soon, and we will talk together face to face. Peace to you. The friends send their greetings. Greet the friends there, each by name.
Amen.
So yeah, the word friends is the word for brothers, talking about those who are in the faith. NRSV gives us a more robust, inclusive term of friends, but it is those who are part of the faith together. So friends and strangers sounds a little weird to us, but somebody who is part of the church but a stranger to Gaius is mentioned there. So there are 3 names here. Again, we don't know the name of the person who wrote it. He's only called the elder, but we associate it with John's gospel and the epistles, or at least traditionally have. Gaius is not a very common name these days, but there's several Gaiuses in the New Testament. In the book of Acts, chapter 19, there is a Gaius who's a companion of Paul from Macedonia. And then just a few verses later, Acts 20, verse 4, there's a Gaius who is a companion of Paul, one of 7 mentioned. But it seems to be a different Gaius because it says he's from Derbe, which is in Galatia, not Macedonia. So there's either 2 Gaiuses in Acts, or there's some text critical thing, and it's just one person. In 1 Corinthians, we have a Gaius. Crispus and Gaius were the short list of people that Paul mentions having baptized in 1 Corinthians 1:14, and then he's also the family of Stephanus. And then in Romans 16, verse 23, there is a Gaius that is commended for being hospitable to the church and to Paul, wherever Paul's writing from, which could be Corinth. So with those, this Gaius could be any one of those, or some combination, or it could be the one that's showing hospitality in Romans. That would be my guess, because that's what we see here is a man that is hospitable and welcoming to the friends, to the people from the church that the elder is sent out with authority. So I think hospitality is at issue here, and you mentioned when we were looking at 2 John that there was this warning against being hospitable to leaders that were teaching the bad things about Jesus. But here it is an exhortation to, or an appreciation for Gaius for showing hospitality to those who are in the faith. And we think of hospitality as coffee before church, or greeters at the door, but in the Bible it's really more of a robust term. It's creating the conditions of welcome and really care for the vulnerable stranger. And I think that this is what the elder John is commending Gaius for, is his love for the church and caring for these itinerant people that were coming, even without knowing them. Krister Stendahl, there's a quote I love from him that says, whenever, wherever, however the kingdom of God manifests itself, it is welcome. And I think that is a sense of kind of the robustness of hospitality. If we really get that, then creating the conditions of welcome for the community of faith and for people to grow.
And that's a real art.
Yeah. So, and Gaius is a good dude, but we're given a contrast here by this next name, only here, Diatriphus. Diatriphus is a leader in the early church, in the community that John is writing to, and we are told a couple things about him, that he likes to think of himself first, and he's not very welcoming. We might draw, similar corollaries to people who are xenophobic and not welcoming and think of themselves first and put their names on buildings. But this is somebody that is a problem for John. He doesn't say, as we see in the other epistles, that he's an antichrist teaching a false gospel about Jesus. I mean, that's not mentioned here. But he is creating false charges against him and his leadership, and making life hard for John in leading the church. And evidently, I think, not listening to John's earlier letter and welcoming those who are of the faith.
Right.
So that is the issue. And then the third person we have here is Demetrius, who may actually be the one carrying this letter to Gaius, and is commended by John and as being somebody who does well. So 3 names, none of them really familiar to us, but I think the interesting thing about this, Ben, is that when we are reading the Epistles of John, we are given a bunch of abstract nouns of like love and truth. I mean, those are the big ones, right? Mm-hmm. Love and truth. And Gaius is one who loves the truth, and he's commended here, and shows love to the brothers and sisters in the faith. Mm-hmm. This book does what the other epistles of John and gives us kind of a concrete example
Of what they're struggling with.
what they're struggling with, and even will point out to those who evidently knew these people better than we do, what is an example of following the way of truth and love. Well, that looks like Gaius and Demetrius. And what are people that are not loving and are looking after themselves first and not providing for brothers and sisters in the faith? Well, sorry to say, that kind of looks like Diatriphus. So if we were writing this today, we might fill in those names a little differently. But if we think of it as like where we've been in the epistles of John, this is a concrete outworking of that. So
It gives us the setting.
yeah. So that's all I have.
Oh, when your struggles are with particular individuals, it's a lot more difficult than when you just talk about struggles generally.
Yeah.
And when you read this, and I encourage people to read it again, you do see why he was struggling so much with this idea of truth if you have this fellow come in and kind of bringing havoc to the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you could also, because this is not a familiar book, you could call someone Diatriphus and they would not know you're insulting
Well,
them.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So-
Tis the season to do that.
all right.
All right. Well, thank you so much. So we'll see everyone in 2 weeks
2 weeks.
for these midweek studies. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.